Hello, and welcome to the Classnotes podcast series featuring reflections from our IDRA Education Policy Fellows. My name is Mikayla Arciaga, and I am IDRA's Georgia Director of Advocacy, and I also have the pleasure of coordinating our Education Policy Fellowship. We'll be talking about the program and how our fellows will be using this experience on their next big adventure. We'll be sharing our hopes for the future of education advocacy and their future plans themselves. During this fourth and final episode, you'll hear from our fellows, Isabelle Phillip, Kaci Wright, DeAndrea Byrd, and Vivek Datla. Please check out their bios and use the link that's in the podcast show notes to read more about their work and what they hope to do next. So let's go ahead and get started. Vivek, we'll start with you. What are some significant pieces of advice that were shared with you about navigating the landscape? And now that you've navigated the landscape with us, what is advice that you would share to those who are interested in joining this work?
Yeah, I don't know about specific pieces of advice per se, but something I really appreciate about IDRA's approach to building me up in preparation for the legislative session as a newbie coming into the space is that each staff member really made me feel like all of my experiences that led me to this point were really valuable and worth bringing into this space. Everybody really encouraged me to tap into my experiences as a former educator working in schools and my experiences as a person of color as well. And that helped me feel more confident, I think, about leaning into those experiences to shape the perspectives and the work that I was bringing into the Capitol. And if I were to give that forward, I would maybe say that those who are interested in joining the advocacy space, doing this type of work, should really lean into their own history and the histories of the people that they have worked with in the past. I think people should feel power in centering their unique backgrounds and identity markers, whether it be racial or cultural or professional or some other identity marker. Feeling power in using that as a core component of your advocacy.
Thank you. I'm so honored that that was something you took from this. I felt like that was something we wanted all of you to experience. DeAndrea, what about you? Was there any advice you received coming in, and what advice would you give on your way out?
One of the most powerful pieces of advice I was given was to lead with my lived experience because I was knowledgeable. And I learned that you don't need to know every policy term or have a fancy degree or a title to make a difference. You just need to show up, stay consistent, have a willingness to learn, speak from the heart, and read everything. And for anyone interested in joining the advocacy space, it's simple. Like, just start where you are, make real connections, be transparent, connect with others. Like, my kids laugh because I literally talk to everybody, or they be like, everybody in Atlanta, because I literally talk to everybody. But you never know who has a shared experience or somebody that you can learn from. We have to be life learners in this space. Find your lane, no matter what it is. All of it adds up and it's all important. Whether you're the good storyteller, whether you talk too much and you're the way that we're sending communication out, whether you're the organizing person, the policy research geek, or anything, like they all go together real bad. And remember, your voice is needed. You belong in absolutely every room where decisions are made. And like Kaci, I too went through imposter syndrome. It's not real. Get over it and get out there.
Speaking of imposter syndrome, Kaci, do you want to highlight that and maybe share what advice you've got, um, given this whole experience as our youngest fellow?
Yeah, I think that people around me knew that I had imposter syndrome coming in, and they gave really good advice to kind of get out of my head on that. And I think one piece of advice that I hold on to that I would pass on to anybody getting involved in this work is just to be confident in the experiences you've had and really lean on that. There were a lot of times where I was questioning, should I be in this space? Do I belong here? And people would tell me, like, go in with the confidence and know that you're really the expert in this space, right? We're the ones that are reading these bills, that are involved in education. We have the expertise. And it only took just a few meetings at the Capitol to kind of realize that is true. And that, policymakers are working on a variety of different topics and they really lean on you and your expertise. So just be confident in those skills going in. And it's okay to feel nervous when you first walk in. I don't think it's normal to feel confident being in an environment that you haven't been in before. So acknowledge that anxiety, be okay with it, and then as time goes on, lean into the confidence and the skills that you grow, and you're just going to keep thriving in these spaces.
Phenomenal. And I just realized mathematically I was incorrect that Isabelle is in fact our youngest member or youngest fellow, but I'm curious if you have had similar experiences or something totally different as far as advice and moving on to the next steps, what you'd give, especially given your previous experiences.
Yeah, I think that what has made me, and I think this is very important, just to have confidence when you go in the Capitol, because there's so many people in there who have a lot of undue confidence that is born from perhaps the amount of money they have or the people they know, rather than, like everyone else said, their lived experience. So, and what helped me build that, as someone who's generally very shy and nervous, is one, being, having the passion, having the experience, having gone through a bunch of different public schools, but also recognizing that um, everyone's kind of figuring it out as they go, when it comes to like people who are trying to make change, because every every fight is different. There's different people you're dealing with. There's um, different people that you have to, get on your side to change minds, which is really helpful because that's let me um, go out of my way to try new things and also be okay with doing something that doesn't affect anything or doing something that I'm not sure if it'll turn out well, because you don't if you don't go out of your way to um, do things differently, then I think that everything gets a little stale. So that would be my advice, like not to be afraid to um, try new things, and you should definitely lean on like people who have been there for a long time, but also that know that at the end of the day, especially in places like Georgia, we do have the short end of the stick when it comes to actual entrenched power, so you have to get creative in the ways that you advocate.
Awesome. I love it. We definitely had to pivot and get creative all the time. So I love that recommendation for folks. So this next question, I'm just curious, I want to also just leverage, you've gone through 9 months of really intensive work. And we've talked about how hard it was in previous episodes. If you folks did not catch episode 1 and 2 about legislative session and what it's like being an advocate of color, I highly recommend going back to listen to those. But I'm curious, like, what gives you guys hope as you're moving on and you're thinking about the work that you've done, the work that you will do, and the work that IDRA will continue doing after you? What is it that you'd like to see done with this space to reimagine and transform schools, education policy making, and what are you hopeful about for the future? Kaci, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I get to go first, of course. Um, yeah, I think I think this session, although it came with like a lot of like low moments where I was like questioning the entire policymaking process, at some point I feel like I really came out with some hope and some faith in all of it. And I think I find a lot of comfort in knowing that like policy making is just ever fluid and it's always changing. And I have never bought in on the idea that like we should just throw up our hands and say these are the things always have been, so that's how it always will be. I think that we need to know that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things can be completely different. And it really takes us continuing to put pressure, continuing to work on these things that's going to make that change happen down the line. And honestly, in a lot of moments, I really found comfort in just thinking about like people that have come before us and the work that they've done. I think about like how Brown v. Board was a 100-year battle that, you know, took the power of so many people with far less resources and support, and they were still able to come out on the other side and get a huge win that we still built on a lot of the work that we do today. So I'm like, if they were able to do that and stay motivated and work on change, I feel like today we can also have that same mindset. And even though things aren't exactly where we want it to be right now, we can still work towards, you know, bettering education for everyone if we just stay on this path that we're on. So yeah, that's what gives me faith and hope moving forward.
Yeah. DeAndrea, what, you know, giving each other a hard time about going first. DeAndrea, what's giving you hope? What's next for you? What are your, sorry, well, not what's next to you, what's giving you hope, and what do you hope for the future of education, advocacy, and policy?
What's giving me hope is being able to bring truth to power. I think sometimes just telling the truth and saying the things that are actually happening, and seeing people and parents, students and parents find their voice and take up space at the Capitol. Like, I love that students are our next generation. They will be the future policymakers, and they're who are directly impacted by policies that are in school. But then parents, we're like the secondary step to the kids that are being effective. Like, whatever happens to our children directly affects our household when they get home. So just seeing the involvement of both students and parents, and also seeing the teachers being brought on the leg, like seeing teachers testify at testimony and give testimony, or come to also the press conferences, they're going through the same thing also that parents and teachers are going through collectively. So it's dissipating the divide that we normally have seen in prior years. When our community show up and speak truth, it shifts the energy in the room. You can't deny it. You're either going to get embarrassed firsthand or secondhand embarrassed if you're the one that made the policy or supported it. Like, we see you and you see us, and you can't hide behind the camera or the pen and say somebody else did it. We can use this power to really reimagine schools by centering the people most impacted and creating policies that actually reflect the real needs and not just do politics as usual. And I think that's how change will happen.
I love that. Not politics as usual. Isabelle, how about you?
I'm seeing a lot. It's very hard for me to contextualize what's happening right now in the past just because I do have such a short window of knowledge, like real firsthand knowledge about our history, um, being born in like the early 2000s. But I, I really think that from what I'm seeing with the people I talk to, even among like young people who are advocates, there's an an energy around um, just like progressive policy and also not being afraid of different labels, like not being afraid of um, like advocating for quote unquote socialist policies. We just saw a primary win by Zofran Mamdani, who's like an incredibly progressive candidate. So things like that give me hope, because I think that people are fed up with what we've got now, and hopefully we'll be dealing with very different legislatures in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I think we're seeing a shift around people power and community centered leadership. Um, uh, and I too think that makes me hopeful. Vivek, what about you? What's given you hope, and what do you hope to see?
Yeah, I don't mind going last at all. I think this is a great question. I find hope and inspiration in the community members and advocates who show up at the Capitol every day, no matter how uninviting a place it can be at times, for them to voice their opposition to harmful policies and show their support for equitable ones. I think about the undocumented individuals who came to the Capitol to share their stories and testify against attempts to repeal the Texas Dream Act, which helped give them a chance to pursue a college education in the state they grew up in for decades in Texas. And I think about how those stories made a legitimate difference. And I know that hearing directly from the strongest people on the planet made policymakers think long and hard about the actions that they were considering taking. And as much as possible, I think we have to try to reimagine schools and education by filling the policymaking space with people like that, uh, people who are actually from impacted communities.
I feel like I'm sensing a theme here, y'all. So post fellowship, I hope that you'll know that we will commit to continuing to bring directly impacted folks into this work and supporting them through this space, and hope you all stay into this space. But I am curious, what are your plans? What are you guys gonna do to wrap this up? And after this, what are you hoping to do? Isabelle, do you want to go first?
Sure. The short answer is I'm not totally sure because this fellowship has given me a lot to think about. We recently attended a conference and one of the presenters said something that really stuck with me, that activism and organized has become very professionalized. And I've been thinking about that a lot, whether my role in advocacy or in organizing should be in the professional space or if I would be more effective outside of that and maybe doing something different, for a full-time job or being paid like we are with this. So I'm going to be thinking about that a lot over the next year or so. And I think that that's also something that we should be thinking about as a broader movement because so many people have been funneled into like the nonprofit space when it comes to advocacy. And I think it would be good to consider the implications of that for our ability to make change, pros and cons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really valid criticism of the space and the work. It's something we debate constantly as a team. I think not knowing where you're going and maybe not having a role set up yet is also a real truth. I think right now I saw a recent report that just said that like this is the hardest job market for college graduates ever. And so we try to do as much as we can to support y'all's next transition. And I know that several of y'all are in that process right now. But yeah, I think that's a very real concern and experience to be sharing. Vivek, what do you have planned next? And has the fellowship influenced this at all?
Yeah, I mean, the fellowship reaffirmed that this is the type of work I want to do long term without any doubt whatsoever. It's absolutely my goal to keep developing as an education policy advocate for years and years and years to come. And I truly do aspire to be like so many individuals on IDRA's staff. And I want to be someone who's considered to be effective and trusted and impactful, very much like Mikayla is. IDRA has also given me a new framework for how to approach my work, and that is to always, always, always center students, especially students of color and students from low-income backgrounds, first and foremost in any conversations or thinking about any education equity issue. Being a former teacher, I often kind of defaulted to thinking about the teacher's perspective first, which is not wrong per se. But now I really understand and appreciate the value of thinking about the student first, since that's ultimately who we're trying to help the most in our line of work, especially those students who are most impacted by bad policies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think I told you really earlier on, that was a mindset I struggled with too. But I also hope that we can emphasize for folks that like really strong evidence-based student-centered policy is good for kids and teachers. And so um, I think we can do one without compromising the other. And I hope, and I know you feel the same way. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Kaci, what about you? What's next? I'm curious. I know you've been working really hard to put your feelers out and build on your network.
Yeah, what's next? That's the question. I think this is a really exciting time after a fellowship to just kind of have a lot of doors open and to explore different avenues because this work can really transpire in many different spaces. I think like a lot like your first year of teaching, your first time working in session, there's so many things I look back on that like, oh, I'm going to do this differently, and I've learned so much, and I really want to fix a lot of the things and move differently. And I really feel the passion to come back next session and to really grow on all the skills I learned this session and just work harder. I definitely caught the ledge bug, as they say. Like, this is kind of where I'm at. I'm all in on this fight. I'm bought in, especially here in Texas. I feel like the fight is needed here and all throughout the South a lot more. And so I hope to come back next session, continue working with IDRA, like on as a partner on all the things you want to do, and just keep, pushing in on this fight, because once you're in, I feel like we're in, baby, and we're going to be along for the ride. It's a long ride that's coming.
Absolutely. No, it is. I mean, I think that hopefully we know that this is like a movement that we're building. So, DeAndrea, speaking of movement and organizing and action and power building, what are you going to be doing next? What are your plans? How do you see this fellowship informing that?
Well, this fellowship really gave me the confidence to understand the language and landscape and the vision to build something that empowers others. Also, people that have known me and know what I do, now that they've seen that I've done this fellowship, that's actually how I've been able to transition into a new job, running into people at the capital that have organizations. But post fellowship, my goal is to continue organizing and to launch more parent centered classes and cohorts, just to kind of teach families or parents like me how to understand policy, track legislation, whether they need to sign up for email lists to see what education things are coming down the pipeline, or whether they need to subscribe to IDRA podcasts or YouTubes, like just really teaching them how to advocate for their kids on local, state, and state level, because they go together with confidence. And this fellowship really showed me how powerful policy knowledge um, is when it comes down to advocacy. Um, and I want to say everything I learned, especially around like the whole student discipline and the special education thing, because I feel like special education has only been looked at on a federal level, but there are so many things that we could be doing on the state level. Again, back down to just fully funding the freaking schools that would protect kids with disabilities. And um, I'm not even going to speak on those federal things, but I just want to say, who doesn't want to educate kids and who doesn't want to feed kids? That's crazy when I think about that in my mind. But I just want to pour back into other parents so they can continue to show up in rooms and speak up. My favorite part of this fellowship was working with the students. They had fresh ideas, and if I had a wish or a magic wand, or actually Harry Potter magic, I would magically appropriate funds for IDRA to keep that student program going in Georgia, and to hire me and Isabelle so that we can continue to work on the Georgia team. So
If we could keep all of you, we certainly would. It's been such an incredible honor to have you guys as part of our team and to see you grow. And I'm so excited to see what you guys do next and how you change the world and the world of education policy after this, because I'm confident you all will. I want to thank you again for giving us your time this afternoon, and for anyone listening, thank you for your interest and your support of our folks. If you are interested in the program, you can always find more on our website, but you can also donate to support and sponsor a fellow. Thank you all so much. I'm so proud of you. I cannot wait for the next part of your big adventure, and I hope you guys will continue sharing, and we will uplift you as we hear things and pour that support forward. Thank you guys so much.